One thing that you're gonna find strange and amazing is how complicit the international community is to the crime that Idi Mnangagwa and his friends are committing in Harare. Because in any economy to succeed, productivity is at the forefront. For any currency regime to succeed, it has to be productive within that area, and then it has to sell its produce to other currency regimes or other currency jurisdiction, so that you can be able to have that stable exchange rate. A stable exchange rate. However, if your economy is not productive, but your central bank is printing money to pay soldiers, to pay the teachers, to pay for basic services in the country, but the country is not earning that much foreign currency, it means that you will have a lot of, you will flood the market with a lot of local paper, but then the productivity will not have risen. So you get hyperinflation in the country. So, in order for hyperinflation to be addressed, there has to be an influx of foreign currency into the economy. Now, there's something that we need to be very careful in. Someone will say, well, Zimbabwe does sell gold, diamonds, lithium, we do get foreign currency. Why doesn't that work in Zimbabwe? It's because that foreign currency, it has to work in the country. However, in Zimbabwe, the foreign currency that is earned through lithium, gold, and all the other mines does not work in the country. Mnangagwas and his criminals, they externalize that currency. So effectually, the economies that receive Mnangagwa's money, which is the UAE, City of London, United States, the safe havens controlled by the British mafia, and Hong Kong, wherever they beg their money, those economies, those financial centers of the world, those are the ones that are benefiting from the hard work and the sweat of the Zimbabweans. So Idi Mnangagwa and his friends have not come to a realization that they shouldn't bank or foreign. They should keep their money in Zimbabwe. Let the money circulate in Zimbabwe. Then you're gonna have an economy that is healthy. But no, they don't want to keep the money in Zimbabwe because most of these monies, some of them are ill-gotten gains, so they have to hide it from the Zimbabweans. And some of the monies they have to hide from each other. Because even Idi Mnangagwa, there's people that steal from him. There's people in the gold mafia who do things that Idi doesn't even know about. So you see, because they have to steal, so they have to keep it in another economy. So those economies benefit when the US dollars that are supposed to come to Zimbabwe, they're supposed to come to the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe and used as to buffer, as a buffer against a depreciating exchange rate. Those foreign currencies do not end up being at the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, but they end up being in other currency jurisdictions around the world, thereby giving firepower to the central banks of those countries. So these countries, what I'm accusing them of is that they know of this phenomenon. So therefore, badla. So they eat whilst quiet. They know that their economies are benefiting as Zimbabwe suffers. When you study currencies, we discover that currency values are all relative to each other. So there is nothing like all currencies gaining or all currencies losing. Currency market is a zero-sum game. As the Zimbabwean dollar is losing its value, there is some currency somewhere or currencies somewhere that are gaining. So as our currency gains value, there is some currency somewhere that is losing. So in these currency wars, this global currency wars, what Idi Mnangagwa doesn't realize is that the ED and ZANU-PF and the gold mafias, they are used by countries to wage a currency war on Zimbabwe and effectively on Zimbabweans. Because they will say to ED and the elite, say, it's fine, bank your money in our countries, it will be safe. Well, perhaps it will be safe, but the job of the government is to fight the currency war for the rest of the Zimbabweans. So ED and his friends, they've abdicated that duty of fighting the currency war on behalf of the Zimbabweans, but rather are now fighting on the enemy's camp. On the enemy's camp, that is the countries that benefit from the money that comes from the Zimbabwean minerals, because that money is banked in other countries and those other countries benefit. How do they benefit? Because their foreign currency reserves are propped up, because it's not even supposed to be their foreign currency reserves, it's supposed to be Zimbabwean currency reserves, but Zimbabwean currency reserves end up in the city of London, they end up in Malaysia, they end up in the UAE. So do you think that UAE, Malaysia, London is happy to see Zimbabwe free? No. Aluta continua. They would like to keep the status quo to be like that. So that it's, I don't know whether Mnangagwa understands it or he doesn't understand this, but I do know that the criminals around him, some of them do not understand it. All that they understand is, do not find rangu and then I'll bank it overseas. But they don't realize that they're actually being used as pawns, in these currency wars. Countries are always engaged in currency wars. So it's another front of the war, of the economic war front, that we need to be very careful of, such that when we bring in a new government, we must arrest that issue, and currency devaluation and inflation in Zimbabwe can be arrested quickly when we begin to begin to account for our productivity in the mining sector. So as I'm saying, that there is productivity in the mining sector in Zimbabwe. It's just that it is not accounted for in the books of Zimbabwe. However, it is accounted for in foreign books, and therefore these foreign countries are happy to see Mnangagwa in power. And perhaps Mnangagwa understands this phenomenon, and therefore he believes that he can stay in power forever, because the foreign entities that are powerful, okay, even in New York, even Wall Street benefits from this, because when they make billions in Zimbabwe, they go and buy equities in the New York Stock Exchange, in the Nasdaq, in the S&P 500. So those people are very much happy to receive Zimbabwean money, and they may understand that it causes suffering to the Zimbabweans. But anyway, to them it's a war. A war is a war. It's fake game. So it's time for the Zimbabweans now to wisen up and know that Etim Mnangagwa must go.